Hey everybody, continuing on the theme of showcasing some of the less well-known mods out there. There are so many of them that add really good value to this game. They deserve to have a little bit of coverage, and I think that that's one way that I can help contribute to the community. Anyway, continuing on that theme, I've got one today called Improved Faction and Legendary Lord Flavor. So let me talk for a minute about who would be interested in this. I'm going to do a little bit of a discussion about what's in the description here, and then I'm going to show a bunch of examples of exactly what this does in game. So, first of all, as I have mentioned before, one of the things that I think is a real strength of the Warhammer Total War series is the great variety that you have between your different races, between your different factions, between your different legendary lords. And what this mod does is it leans into that by basically taking what each lord already does in a unique way, whether it's new mechanics or just buffs to certain units or things like that. Anyway, it takes those and it kind of leans into it and kind of amplifies them to make them feel that much extra special, that much extra unique. And so this is really good from a thematic standpoint for those of us who like the theme of Warhammer. And quite frankly, if you're playing this game, why would you not be a fan of the theme of Warhammer? But in any case, for people who like to see that theme and like the idea of kind of enhancing that theme, I think this is going to appeal to them. Now, there's many different mods out there that do this in one form or fashion. There's even a few of them that do it universally for all of the different legendary lords, like this one. So this one mainly just addresses the traits that you see on the main menu screen, and we'll get, like I said, into a number of examples of those. But let's go ahead and talk about his reason for creating this mod and what this mod does in his own words. And then, like I said, I'll go ahead and jump in and show some specifics. So this mod aims to improve faction and legendary lord starting effects and traits to feel more flavorful. The aim is to add a bit more unique feeling to each for more varied gameplay when picking a different faction of the same race. Almost every faction has had some additions to either their faction effect or the Legendary Lord's trait, or in some cases both. Certain Legendary Lord defeat traits have also been improved slightly for the ones that felt really boring or borderline useless. For Legendary Lord defeat traits, one example that stands out would be Gorst's, who now has got Isabella's old defeat trait baked into his lackluster trait of poison attack, so it will now be a more valuable trait since it grants regeneration effect to the lord who gets it. I think most people would agree that regeneration is a pretty strong effect. Okay, so the old legendary lord and faction effects have been slightly improved as well as brand new effects and I think he means brand new effects added. Legendary heroes also will be included in this mod for adjustments when needed. So far, only the Green Knight, who finally has a starting trait when he spawns. The other special heroes, such as Henri le Massif, has had some improvements to their starting trait for those that have set ones. The secondary goal has been to add more uniqueness while not disturbing balance too much in order to still maintain some of the vanilla feel with some improvements on top. Having messed around with this for a little bit, I can say he accomplishes that. It does still very much feel like the same game as vanilla, just with a little bit extra sprinkled on top. New effects have all been picked to try to play into the faction and legendary lord's theme and or lore in some way. Hopefully this should all contribute to some extra replayability within different factions in the same race besides just a different starting location. You can see some examples of new and improved faction and legendary lord effects in he leaves this blank, but I'm pretty sure he means in the screenshots up here. But nearly every legendary lord has received some touch-ups. So, this is a recent mod, recently been worked on. The mod author does appear to be active, so that is always a good sign as well. So, like I said, let's go ahead and talk about some of the specifics. So in the background here, I am showing both the vanilla and the modded versions of some of these different lords, and I'm not going to go through all of them. There's what are there now, 100 different legendary lords, right? So way too many to try to cover in one video, but I think if I do a handful of these, you should get a pretty good sense for what this mod is doing. And then, of course, that leaves a lot of the excitement of finding out for yourself when you give this a try for yourself. So went ahead and picked a couple of the most popular races here at the very beginning. So I think Skaven are still pretty popular. Let's just go through a couple of examples of those. So we have Queek Headtaker, which is giving additionally, in addition to the regular vanilla faction effects, diplomatic relations negative with the dwarfs, which makes sense, of course. He's also getting bonus versus infantry +8 during subterranean intercept battles, charge bonus +7 for clan rat units, so this is obviously leaning into his being more of a clan rat oriented legendary lord. Doesn't look like he's losing any of the standard vanilla faction effects. Those look all the same, and the same applies then for his lord effects. Moving on to one of my favorites, Lord Skralk. As you can see here, he keeps the same faction effects of vanilla and additionally gets recruitment cost reduction for Plague Monks and Plague Claw catapult units. This is at a faction level, and weapon strength bonus for Plague Monk units. And then as a Lord effect, he keeps the Skaven corruption and upkeep reduction, and then additionally gains attrition of -33%, casualties suffered from all attrition, and a charge bonus of +6 for Plague Monk units. So obviously this is very much leaning into him being thematically the leader of a Plague Monk army. Now we have Tretch, who is everybody's favorite Skaven Lord, I am sure. In addition to his regular faction effects, he is now also gaining income from post-battle loot of +75% when fighting against Cathayan caravans and Chaos Dwarf convoys, and a casualty replenishment rate of +5%, which is always very welcome. And as a specific to him Lord effect, he's gaining the melee defense +5 for Storm Vermin units, which does make sense because Tretch is supposed to be the leader of he's supposed to have these special Storm Vermin units, of course. Okay, and then Claw, who, all joking aside, probably really is one of the favorites from a lot of players. Anyway, he is keeping the regular vanilla faction effects and additionally adding hero action cost of -33% for Warlock Engineers and upkeep reduction for Doomflayer and Doomwheel units. And then specific to him as his Lord effects, again, he is keeping the regular vanilla reduction to upkeep and addition for recruit ranks for certain units there, of course, but then also gains Winds of Magic Power Reserve +3 per turn and a physical resistance of 8% for Doomflayer and Doomwheel units in his army. All right, for Deathmaster Snikch, he is gaining as a faction effect Lord Recruit ranks of +2 for Master Assassins, an ability called Looming Dread for Assassin Heroes, and a cooldown of 20% reduction for Skaven Spells of Stealth. And specific to him, he is gaining an upkeep of 30% reduction for Eshin Triad units. All right, and finally for the Skaven, we have Throt the Unclean, again keeping all the normal faction effects, and in addition gaining a casualty replenishment rate boost for a number of the different monsters units that he can create. And here's an example of where the Lord effects are remaining the same as they are in vanilla. So let's move from the Skaven on to another really popular faction, which is, of course, the Empire. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all of the different Imperial legendary lords here. I think at this point you probably already get a pretty good idea, but I'm going to cover a couple of them just for those who might be interested. Emperor Karl Franz is gaining additional diplomatic relations with all Imperial factions. And he personally is gaining a leadership of +5 when fighting in own or allied territory for his army. And then good old Balthazar Gelt Again, keeping the regular faction effects and additionally gaining allegiance points gained plus 25% and allied recruitment, capacity of +1, and then an additional +1 allied unit capacity in his own army. And I think maybe one more will do Marcus Wolfhart. He has all the original faction effects plus income from sacking settlements of plus 30%, a reload time reduction of plus 15% for all characters. That would very much appeal to me. And ability of Trapper's Net for Huntsman General Lords. And again, his Lord effects appear to be the same as they are for vanilla. So anyway, there you have it. Some of the specifics. I'm going to continue to allow some of these to go ahead and keep rolling here in the background. I will, of course, allow the rest of the Imperial Legendary Lords to play through, and then we'll go from there, and I'll show, I think, maybe some examples of the Warriors of Chaos faction leaders and the Dwarfs. I think the Dwarfs are still fairly popular since their rework as well. And yeah, just to wrap this up, I think this is obviously relatively subtle. It's not going to have, in most cases, I don't think, profound changes on the way that your campaign plays, but these changes do add up in terms of making them feel, not just your own legendary lord, but every legendary lord in the game starts to have things that they're really particularly good at, makes them feel that much more unique, that much more powerful in some respects. Good way to distinguish them from other lords within their own races, and then, of course, with the variance between different races as well. So this appeals to me from a thematic standpoint. I like the to get as immersed as possible, and in no way does this really feel like it's breaking that theme at all. It's really just adding to it. So I would be very interested to hear if any of you have any experience with this mod, if you have come across anything that you feel like breaks the lore, because I know many of you know the lore better than I do. To me, it's pretty appealing because, like I said, it just kind of leans in to what already makes the game so special. I'm going to go ahead and let it run for another minute or two here, showing some more of the examples in the background, but that's really all I had to say. So other than just basically saying, please provide any feedback if you've got any experience with this mod. If you have other mods that you think accomplish much the same thing, go ahead and mention those, or any other mods that you would like for me to cover, particularly if they're somewhat less well-known mods. Don't say, hey, SFO, because obviously everybody's already familiar with SFO. But anyway, you catch my drift, hopefully. So yeah, anyway, at the risk of rambling on too long, I'll go ahead and wrap it up there. But thanks everybody so much for watching and listening, and I will see you in the next one.
God of Mountains!
Bring ruin! The attention's all on me.
Germs and viruses fill their sinuses.
The
Axfather's halls are only for the worthy.
I am the master of misrule.
We shall enact my vengeance.
For the Karazhan Corps. I am the Slayer King. Zulrikaz!
I am the White Dwarf.
Master Rune Lord of Karakazol.
Who am I? Only the greatest dwarf engineer that ever lived. Who are you? Whoa!
To die in battle.
Zulrikaz! You know who I am?
Orek, master of ancient lore.
Who am I? Only the greatest dwarf engineer that ever lived. Who are you?